Hello, welcome back. As you can see here today that we are going to see what exactly is so different when it comes to user accounts in Windows and user accounts in Linux. We're going to see what's the difference between creating user accounts in Linux and in Windows, how to give admin rights to user in Linux, what is sudo in Linux, and we're going to do step-by-step comparison in Linux and Windows about account management. And I hope this video will clear all confusion about user accounts in Linux. So let's get started. I'll leave this in the side here so we know what we're doing. And let's start with Windows first. Okay, so normally in Windows we go to, let's say, user add or user account. It says add or remove user accounts. Cool, let's try that. Okay, it says other users. I go add user. Okay, skip that part. Just want to test a user account. Don't have Microsoft account. Let's say this is Linux Plus, for example, just testing part. We put one temporary password. Yep, and we just say just random questions, not dog. I'll say dog, and let's say just I don't know. Maybe should I call him? I had a funny word in my mind, so. Let's say kick. Okay, next. Alright, so as you can see, this is the account that is created here, and if we want to change the account type to, let's say, it's by default standard user. Let's say I want to change it to administrator here, and I can say okay, go, done. That's it. That's pretty much it in Windows. So now the user can log in using Linux Plus, right? And he can do whatever he wants. He's administrator now. Well, what about if we remove it? It will delete all its data, test it out, and it's done. So that's pretty much in Windows. Windows is super easy. Okay, let's try it out how it looks like in Linux. Okay, so I'm logged in here. Let me make it here so that we know what we're doing. Okay, so let's see what are the users already there under Etsy. So you can see that these are some of the system accounts that are already there, and we are going to create one user account, and it should start with the ID user 1000. Okay, let's say I say user add, and you need to give the user name, for example Linux Plus. Oh, Linux Plus already exists. Okay, what about the user add Linux Plus 1? User add Linux Plus 1. Okay, so now if we do cat Etsy and you go to password, we can see that Linux Plus 1 is here, and it's got user ID 1000. Okay, cool. And now we can see that if we go to cd home ls, okay, we can see that this is the Linux Plus. This is the user account. Okay, so now for example, if I do su switch user, if I do Linux Plus 1, okay, so I'm now switched to that user account now at the moment. So what I can do here now, if I do sudo -l, I want to see if this user has some admin rights, or can he do some administrator work, just like we did in Windows. We selected administrator tab. So does that user have any kind of permissions? Say okay, we see the password for Linux Plus. by the way, we didn't specify the passwords. So first thing should be to do password and then Linux +1. Only user can specify it. Okay, only the root. Okay, there you go. So that means Control D. Okay, now we do password Linux +1. Changing password. Okay, we set one temporary password. Okay, so now password is changed for the account. If we do su Linux +1, we are there now. Set tilde, we go to home. Okay, so now for example, if we say sudo -l, we just want to see if this can run any of the admin tasks on this VM. Okay, it says user Linux Plus may not be able to run sudos on Linux Plus. So what exactly is sudo? Sudo is like kind of if you do, for example, sudo yum install nmap, for example, right? And if you put password, it will allow you to install that program. For example, in this case, it says that you can't install anything. This is like kind of like a basic access. You can't do nothing on the VM. Alright, so how do we add this user in the sudoers group? Okay, so we go back to Control D. So we are back in the root now. So we go to user mod -a, A for addition, and G for the group, and we want to add in wheel. So now wheel group by default in Linux, if you are a member of that, it gives you the root permissions, so you can run sudo commands. And we're gonna say this Linux +1. Okay, so now we know that the user Linux +1 is added in the group wheel. We use the command user mod. Okay, so now if we go to su Linux +1 and we go to sudo tilde sudo -l, we want to test if this user can run it or not. Okay, we put the password that we changed before. Okay, see, it said all user Linux Plus may be able to run all commands now. All. Okay, cool. So that means if you say sudo yum install nmap, see, so that means you can install anything you like, or you can even delete whatever you like. Okay, so that means it's working. Cool. Okay, so if I want to switch to root, so you can do like sudo su super user, and there you go. So you are now root. So that means now this user Linux +1 can act like a root if it wants to be, because it's now in sudoers group, for example. So how do we check that? So if we do grep -i for Linux Plus, and we want to check it under etc and under group here now. As you can see that wheel is the group, and we can say that Linux +1 is the member of that. So that means if you want Linux +1 to not have admin rights, you need to remove this from this group here now. So how do we do that? Remember like what we did? So we added the user in Windows, for example, to make it administrator, right? And then we can change it to standard user, or we can make him the administrator, right? So how does it work in Linux? So we can simply remove the group wheel from the user. Okay, let's try how it works. So use the command g password. As you can see that we are logged in as root. Control D, so we're back to normal root. Oh no, I think that's not it. Who am I? Linux Plus, right? We don't want that. Okay, we're back to our normal root. Alright. Who am I? Root. Okay. So we go to G password -D to delete, and we want to delete Linux plus 1 from group wheel. Okay, it says removing user Linux plus from group wheel. Okay, so how do we know that it worked or not? So we can see that this is it's a confirmation, and then we see, okay, grep -I, and we want to grep account Linux plus 1, and we want to go to under etc under group. Here you can see that Linux plus 1 is just an account, so it's not members of the wheel group at the moment now. Okay, so if we do su Linux plus 1, for example, and we want to go to cd tilde home, and we go to sudo -l. Let's test if this user still have the admin rights or not. Okay, see, sorry, the user cannot run any commands, any admin commands on Linux Plus. Well, that's what we wanted. Okay, now let's log out here now. So how does the deletion part works in Linux? Like we just tested in Windows, that we can delete the user and we can also delete its data, so everything will be deleted, right? So how does it work in Linux? Okay, well, in Linux you have the command. Let's see if the user is already there. So we go to cd home ls. So you can see under pwd, you can see under home directory all the users that are created, just like when we go to the C drive, and then we see all the users that are there. Okay, so now if I do user del, and I just specify the name Linux plus 1, it will delete the user account, but it will not remove whatever data was there already. So in order to remove the data, you need to do things differently, because by default it leaves the data there and it's just for the auditing purpose. You know, if you don't want to delete the data of the user, but you want to delete the account. So deleting account is different and deleting the data is different. Okay, let's say if we want to create one account and then see if we want to delete everything about the account. So if you want to delete this, for example, rm-rf, and for example star. So now it's deleted, but you have to do it manually, right? How does it work? For example, if you want to delete a user completely, like just we did in Windows. So let's make one user, because there is no user now at the moment. So user add, let's say Muhammad. If you go to home, you'll find here Muhammad is here. cd Muhammad, mkdir test folder, cd test folder. Let's say if we create few files, touch file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4, for example. If there are few files, cd ls. Okay, so now we know that there is a user account named Muhammad, and we want to delete everything about it the one go, just like we did in the Windows. How do we do that? Okay, let's go here. Let's first find out that if this user is there. This is the one here. So we want to just remove this. How do we do that? So you use the command user del -r. You want to remove everything about it, and then you specify the name. So now if you go to home ls, there's nothing. So this is pretty much it when it comes to managing user accounts in Linux and in Windows. So the reason I wanted to highlight is because this way I think it will really make sense and things would be much clearer. You know, that in Windows we have the users, how do we add the users, how we give the admin rights to the users, right? In Linux is pretty similar. And I think one of the part that I didn't show you guys was how to actually create the groups. So creating group, I think that section is just group add, and you just name the group. For example, test group. There you go. And if you check if the group is already created or not, you go to cat etc and group. See, the test group is created here now. So that's pretty much it, right? So there's nothing really to worry about when it comes to Linux. It's not that scary at all. And so sudo is admin rights in Linux, and you can add the users in different groups in Linux. Just like I created the test. What was the name of the group? I forgot. So you can have multiple groups. Just like in AD, for example, a user can be part of multiple groups, right? So it's not a big deal. In the Linux, that works the same way. So yeah, I hope this made some better clarity when it comes to managing users, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.